What's up, guys? You're watching Milltown Reacts. My name is Jace.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Clara.
And today, we join you one last time. Well, we have one more thing for Game of Thrones, but for this specific thing,
Yes.
last time ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would that be?
That is the history and lore for season 8
Yes.
of Game of Thrones. A very short one this time.
Yeah, we did not even know that there was a history and lore for season 8. We thought it ended at season 7 because the playlist that we found ended at season 7, so...
The more you know, but also
more
to
you
be
know.
fair, season 8 was the shortest season, so having the
Yeah.
shortest history and lore makes sense
Yeah.
to me.
It's average.
It's like a third of the last one we watched, I think. Or one of the ones we watched, at least.
Yeah.
But I'm not complaining.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see what, it has to offer. And yeah, go from there. And then we'll try and, we'll get back into the swing of things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how this goes.
Getting into it like normal. All right.
Please press that like button. Please comment your thoughts down below. And hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
Because we're hurting. We don't think we can keep this up anymore.
That's not true, but it would be greatly appreciated if
And we're
you,
thinking about
if you
closing the
did.
channel. We've had a few meetings now about selling the equipment because we've been living in boxes.
Spare change.
That is
Feel bad for us, guys.
Yeah.
Please, woe was me.
Give
Pity
us,
me.
Give us pity likes, yeah.
Yeah, give us pity. Like this video because you pity us. And then
That'd
comment
be
your...
so cool.
Yeah. No, guys, we do want you to like this video, though, if you like the content. And we have a link in the description. It'll take you over to Patreon, where you can watch the entirety of our Game of Thrones season reactions, full length.
Yes.
Completely unedited.
Yeah.
You get the first episode of every season of every show absolutely free. And there is a ton of content over there, so go check it out.
About to be more.
More.
The last history and lore. There is, it's on YouTube. I don't think I have to do the timestamps and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna hop into this, bitch. In 3, 2, 1, blank.
There's time. Or not?
King's
there we
Landing
go.
is both a city and a curse.
And
Aegon the Conqueror was the first king to land there. His first conquest, a tiny village at the mouth of the Blackwater River, where he raised a wooden fort. When it became clear that Aegon would earn his title, people flocked to the fort and renamed it King's Landing in his honor.
Matt
The ploy
Mikkelsen?
succeeded, and Aegon chose King's Landing for his capital over older and more beautiful cities like Old Town and anywhere else. The currying of royal favor thus became the foundation of the city, and blood its bricks. Maegor the Cruel, Aegon's son, completed the city's famous Red Keep to hold the trappings of power, the royal family, the king's guard, and the Iron Throne. To maintain the new castle's secrets, Maegor murdered all its masons and craftsmen at a feast, which he catered with the new castle servants, who soon found all its secrets for themselves. When the Faith Militant challenged his rule, Maegor raised their sept of remembrance to the ground with them inside at prayer and erected the dragon pit on the ashes. But the great dragons it housed were attacked by the very low-born people they were meant to terrify. Thousands of people died in the attempt, but hundreds of thousands lived in King's Landing. And now the only dragons in the city are golden. Like most kings, Aegon and Maegor missed a central truth. That a king lands is less important than what he lands on. The people, who will never visit his Red Keep, or his Dragon Pit, or any of his noble monuments to nobility, because they're too busy holding up his realm. Without the slums of Flea Bottom and the poor and desperate folk it produces, who would fight the king's wars and cook the king's meals, and admire him as he rode past at speed? Without its winding dark alleys and pot shops, where would the Red Keep empty its sewage? Of all kinds.
Ooh.
Without the Street of Flour, the king
That
would
was
have no
wild.
bread. Without the Street of Steel, the
Dang.
king's armies would have no swords, armor, or victories. Without the Street of Looms, the king would go naked. And without the Street of Silk, he wouldn't enjoy it. Without the Street of Sisters, the king would have no humility. It leads from the ruin of the Dragon Pit to the ruin of the great Sept of Baelor, where the Targaryens and Baratheons buried their kings, until Cersei Lannister unburied them. Now those kings are ashes, scattered on the wind, and nobody marked where they landed.
Something interesting just happened with the audio.
Yeah.
Is a tomb.
It dropped from
A
like
realm
720 to
without people
240p
is scenery.
in audio only.
Right. So Flea Bottom, Bronze from Flea Bottom, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
And then
Braun from the Blackwater?
Or
no. Yeah, you're right.
Well, no,
Someone
he's
knows
Braun
from
of
Flea
the
Bottom.
Blackwater because of the
Yes,
the Battle of
because
the
they
Blackwater.
gave him the
Didn't even
title.
understand the lords who
yeah.
chose to honor their oaths
But
and fight
Davos is from Flea Bottom.
Thank you. Yeah,
of
Davos.
House Greyjoy
Ooh.
set out Robert's rebellion on Pike.
That looks
Their
cool.
Tentacles
Yeah.
up their arse.
My father Quellen was old, and sitting is what old people do best. Well, second best. He would have sat out the whole war, if not for my brother and me. We convinced him that nobody would fear the walls of the sea if we curled up by our fires, while others feasted on the spoils of the Mad King. So the old
that's
man
so
creaked
cool.
into his rusty armor and set sail for the Reach, only to be routed by Tyrell longboats.
Sea of
When
Thieves?
my father sadly fell in battle, my older brother Balon beat a tactical retreat to his own inheritance as the new lord of the Iron Islands.
I'd rather die in the Reach than live on the Iron Islands.
The roses are prettier to pluck, but my brother was getting old and felt that longing to sit, and the sea stone chair was as good a place as any. Within a few years, he realized that sitting is only fun if everyone else has to stand. He had the priest reforge. No, that's not right. They picked up sticks on the beach, wove them into a new ancient driftwood crown, and declared Balon the king of the Iron Islands. Unfortunately for my brother, the other king in Westeros, Robert Baratheon, was famously bad at sharing, and his father by law and warden of the West, Tywin Lannister, had a mighty fleet at Lannisport within striking distance of the Iron Islands.
Yes, you were very clever, and how brave, burning our ships at anchor in the night.
They would have burned the same in daylight. Iron's a lazy beast. You didn't rouse until long after I set fire to your proud mane. I planned it all, you know. My first torch took your father's flagship. If it makes you feel better, we didn't loot it. Out of respect. And time.
I don't think I ever saw Robert happier
And
than
time.
the day he heard about the Greyjoy Rebellion. He'd been king for a handful of years, and many handfuls of other things. And it was clear to him and everyone else how ill-suited he was to rule. But battle he could do. Unfortunately, by the time we raised our army, we seemed to be winning the war. Balon's eldest son, your nephew, died trying to storm Seaguard, and his men were thrown back into the arms of their drowned god. If we wanted battle, we'd have to hurry north before the Ironborn put down their own rebellion.
And we would have, if I'd had my way. Rebelling was a stupid idea.
Never stopped your people before.
Before Balon put those sticks on his head, I told him that if he wanted to rule the Iron Islands, all he had to do was give King Robert a tour of them. Why waste our forces fighting a war we couldn't win for a place our enemy wouldn't want? With the Iron Fleet, we could reef not just Westeros, but the rich lands beyond the Sunset Sea. But my brother was too attached to that sea stone chair. He commanded me to sail the Iron Fleet against Robert's navy before we could ferry his army to Pike.
A navy commanded by Robert's younger brother, Stannis, most known for sitting in a besieged castle eating dogs and horses. Remind me, how did you fare against a man who'd never commanded ships in battle?
Nearly too well.
Stannis smashed your Iron Fleet at Fair Isle.
After I sailed it into a strait where our numbers and the size of our ships would work against us, it took some doing to convince my men to rush into such an obvious trap. Stannis was not a subtle man.
You would rather claim treason than defeat.
Victory would have only delayed it. We couldn't hold off Robert's forces forever. But we could waste enough Ironborn that we wouldn't even fill our own islands after the war. I made sure the Silence escaped. That was enough for me. That, and watching your army smash my brother's castle soon afterwards.
Why didn't you just abandon him after Fair Isle? Why risk your precious life fighting for him at Pike?
I wanted to kill the best knights in Westeros.
You failed.
So did you. I expected pursuit when I fled Pike on the Silence. But I suppose you were too busy not punishing my brother to not punish the man who burned your father's fleet. And now, I'm back.
You were back. But what is the King of the Iron Islands when he's off the Iron Islands?
I'll never see those shit-stained rocks again. But I'm getting old, and I find myself wanting to sit down, as my father and brother did in their time. They just chose the wrong chair.
I just hate Euron so much
I know.
that I'm like, dude, you can't even contend with Jaime.
No.
So, but the animation was so cool in that I was like,
Yeah.
dude, this is so
I
cool.
know. Also, can we
It's
turn my
conflicting.
headphones down?
Aegon,
Yes,
Tiny.
absolutely.
fourth of his name, is remembered
sure
by
which one's-
history as the unworthy. Quite a feat considering the other kings of Westeros. But even in a family not known for
You need more?
equanimity, Aegon stands out for spiteful incompetence.
Nice.
Thank
He
you.
tore apart the realm simply because he couldn't rule himself, much less Westeros. As a young prince, Aegon's wit made him beloved at court and won him forgiveness for youthful indiscretions. But the cold steel of the Iron Throne didn't temper his passions. King Aegon proclaimed that if he had to spend his days being pricked by 1,000 swords, he'd spend his nights
no.
pricking others with his one.
That's recording the other
Lords
screen.
sent their daughters from
shit, what the
court so
fuck?
they would not catch the king's eye, whilst other
is that
lords
happening?
summoned the daughters to
I mean, we can
court.
re-record the
So they
YouTube
would.
video.
Yeah.
The only woman in whom he
So?
took no pleasure was his sister and wife, Nerys.
Oh,
Even
cool.
after she gave him a son and heir, Daeron. Perhaps Aegon was jealous of her supposed love for his brother, the
I like the art,
legendary
though.
hero Prince Aemon, the Dragon Knight. Aegon was most certainly jealous of him. Not of his bravery or honor, but how young maidens swooned and old whores cried at the songs about him.
Our
But most
Aemon, right?
likely, Aegon disregarded his wife and son because he
Oh.
chafed at restraints
Yes.
of any kind.
From the wall.
Be they the bonds of marriage, or patrimony, or even reason. When Prince Daeron objected to his father's foolish plan to invade Dorne, Aegon incited a lickspittle lord to accuse the queen of adultery with Aemon, making Daeron illegitimate. Prince Aemon defended the queen's honor in trial by combat. But while the lord's claim publicly died with him, no sword can kill a rumor. Out of spite and pique, Aegon had seeded doubt into his own heir's claim to the throne, which bore bitter fruit with the birth of another son, the bastard Daemon Waters, by the king's own cousin. Raised in the Red Keep on account of his mother's royal blood, Daemon grew tall and powerful, and excelled at all the martial skills that men wrongly value in leaders. Instead of protecting his own heir from a rival, Aegon knighted Daemon at 12, and shocked the realm by bestowing on him the Conqueror's own Valyrian steel sword. He even
that
let the
Varys
boy
pass
renounce
the
his common
blade?
bastard's name and take
Maybe.
the Targaryen sword's name for his own,
think so, that was
becoming
cool.
Daemon Blackfyre. Still, though a name can change, blood can't. And
Blackfyre.
Daeron was Aegon's only true-born son, until he wasn't. On his deathbed, Aegon forever earned his epithet by legitimizing all his bastards, from the base-born sons of whores to the great bastards of noble ladies, including Daemon. Fittingly, Aegon's last act was to thrust himself into the realm and seed chaos. A Targaryen without self-restraint may have led Westeros to the brink of ruin, but the Highborn pushed it over. Though Daeron governed justly and wisely, correcting the worst excesses of his father's rule, many lords had grown rich off these excesses and did not approve of Daeron's reforms, particularly the peace he struck with Dorne. The
Olenna?
malcontents rallied to Daemon and whispered that he should be king instead of his brother, whom, thanks to Aegon, many suspected was a bastard. At first, Daemon indulged these lords out of courtesy and vanity. But over time, their grievances and flattery wore down his objections, along with any sense of obligation to the half-brother who had granted him lands and a wife. Daemon agreed to claim the throne by right of birth, and more importantly, arms. A wheel with two hubs will not turn, and a kingdom with two kings will burn, as the saying goes. Not that such a cost ever stopped anyone with even the remotest claim and opportunity, much less House Blackfyre. Their rebellions consumed tens of years and thousands of lives. First Daemon's own, then his son, Daemon II, who reigned for a night. Then another son, Haegon, crowned by Bittersteel, another legitimized great bastard who had founded the Golden Company to support the Blackfyre claim. When Haegon was executed, Bittersteel crowned Haegon's eldest son, Daemon III, who in turn was slain by their Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Duncan the Tall.
Oh my
Finally,
gosh.
Meleys the Monstrous fell to Sir Barristan Selmy in the War of the Ninepeny Kings, and the Blackfyre Rebellion ended with the extinction of the entire line. As is appropriate, fire is only black when it is burned to ash. Perhaps that was the true problem with the Targaryens. The blood of the dragon runs hot, and fire consumes.
Can I pause it for a second?
Perhaps what West...
What's really cool here is I'm pretty sure Sir Duncan the Tall is Dunk from the Dunk and Egg series that George R. R. Martin
I
wrote.
didn't know that.
And he was one of the ones that killed one of them during the Blackfyre Rebellion. So that means that during the Dunk and Egg series, we'll be seeing the Blackfyre Rebellions.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that in House of the Dragon, we get to see kind of the formation of Daemon Blackfyre.
Yeah.
And Aemond is Aemond from the Wall, right? Aegon's brother?
Maybe. I think. If it's that close to it.
I mean, I don't know.
Because he said, and then my brother Aegon took the throne because I refused. And then he went to the Wall.
Right.
He said he went to the Wall?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's the maester at the Wall.
Yeah. I think so.
Oh, you're talking about in the show?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, it also gets very confusing
I
because
thought you
of
meant
all
in this
the
history and lore.
Targaryens that have the same name as each
yeah,
other.
exactly.
Yes,
That's-
Aegon, Aemond, and then there's Edmund, and yeah.
And then the amount of like seconds and thirds that there are with the like.
Yeah, very traditional family.
Yeah. Anyways, we're continuing.
Most needs is a ruler born not from fire, but from snow.
I mean, yeah.
Dum, dum.
Oh, Tormund.
Giant's Bane.
For thousands of years, when my people looked south, they saw only a wall of ice where lonely crows perched. The Kneelers had stolen our horizon, when our tools shattered against frozen rock, or our boats capsized in rough seas, or bears and shadow cats snatched our game. We cursed the soft men of the green lands beyond the wall. We cursed, and we envied. Huddled around our fires, we told tales of how the Southerners lived, how their stone houses touched the clouds and their bellies touched the ground, how their women fainted at the sight of blood and wouldn't knife a man even when he slept, how they wouldn't miss a few swords or rings or daughters. But now we've seen the real South, and we have to admit, we're disappointed. Southerners live life bent over, in the fields, in courts, in bed. They drink too little beer and they eat too many plants. In the North, a man's worth is in his hands and his stories, not his fancy name and fancy talk. With good steel, a man can hunt, kill, and live. What can a man do with gold? Except shine.
Don't
But what
put
should I
Jamie
expect
onto
from a
this.
people who all want to sit on the iron chair? A waste of good metal. You can make better seats. I've used them.
This
How
animation.
am I supposed to get comfortable on a bunch of swords? Now I see why all your queens are fighting over it. Maybe your southern asses are soft enough to take it, but give me a proper seat any day. Or a proper southern ass. As long as it isn't in the south. From what I hear, King's Landing is even hotter and madder than Winterfell. full of oath breakers, rich shits, and tiny women. They'll kneel to anyone with an army, or gold, or special blood. Nobody can tell me if it's more red, or less red, or what. Maybe it's purple. If the Dragon Queen wants a bunch of kneelers to be stomping along after her, she can have them. But my people have had enough. The dead are gone from the north, but the south is full of them. You just can't tell the difference.
All right, Tormund.
I like him.
Yeah. Oh, the Defiance of Duskendale.
The coin of Ares, second of his name, had landed on madness.
We gotta see when that
But
Duncan
half
Egg
the
series is
coins
gonna
of the
come out too.
Targaryens
Yeah.
had landed so. Yet only Ares would be known as the Mad King, thanks in no small part to the Defiance of Duskendale. Duskendale was the greatest port on Blackwater Bay until Aegon built King's Landing. As the capital grew richer and more prosperous, it sucked ships and gold away from Duskendale. To halt its long decline, the Lord of Duskendale, Sir Dennis Darklyn, petitioned King Aerys for a royal charter that would allow him to levy his own port fees and taxes, which would obviously be lower than in King's Landing. The Hand of the King, Tywin Lannister, refused. But, knowing of the tension between the Hand and its king, Sir Dennis invited the king to Duskendale to evaluate his petition himself rather than deferring to his Hand. When Tywin admonished the king to refuse, as any sensible advisor would, a petulant and bristling Aerys instead accepted, traveling to Duskendale with a small retinue and only one of his Kingsguard. As soon as Aerys stepped within the city, Sir Dennis seized him, killing the Kingsguard and the few others who dared defend their king. Aerys was hauled to the dungeons to have his beard pulled, and have other petty cruelties inflicted on his royal person.
To have his beard pulled?
Lord Tywin immediately raised an army and
Like
marched
with
on Duskendale.
tweezers? Because
But
that
Sir Dennis
would
threatened to
hurt.
kill the king at the first signs of an assault. If Sir Dennis hoped to force Tywin to offer terms, he didn't know Lord Tywin, who refused to even parley until Sir Dennis released the king and surrendered. The royal army surrounded the city, and the royal navy blockaded it. Sir Dennis had clearly not anticipated such obstinacy, nor that the king's Hand would be in no rush to save the maddening king, when, as Lord Tywin himself pointed out, the realm had a better option in the king's much more stable son, Prince Rhaegar. After 6 months, Lord Tywin's patience was at an end. Or at least, none could claim he acted recklessly if he now stormed the city and Sir Dennis killed the king.
I like that
But the
transition.
dutiful and honorable Sir Barristan the Bold volunteered to infiltrate the city and rescue his king single-handedly, as befit his Kingsguard oath. Tywin couldn't refuse such valor, publicly. And so begrudged Sir Barristan one night. Then he would storm the city and put every man, woman, and child to the sword. With only his hands, Sir Barristan climbed the city walls in the dark of night and snuck through the city disguised as a beggar, evading patrols and suspicious townspeople. When he reached the walls of the city keep, the Dun Fort, he scaled those by hand as well, even dispatching the wall guard before he could sound an alarm. With incredible bravery and luck, Sir Barristan made his way to the dungeons and freed his king. Then Sir Barristan's luck ran out. A cry went up through the castle. Someone had discovered the king was gone. With horns and trumpets blaring an alarm, Sir Barristan cut their way to the stables, avenging his slain Kingsguard brother, but taking an arrow to his chest.
Oh.
Slipping through the castle gate just as it closed, the wounded Sir Barristan and Aerys rode through the roused town, racing for the city walls and beyond it the safety of the royal army. Lord Tywin's archers raced forward to clear the walls of defenders, and Sir Barristan the Bold earned immortality by delivering King Aerys to the waiting, if not welcoming, arms of his Hand. Without his hostage, Sir Dennis surrendered and begged mercy from the same king he'd imprisoned. Most men would have had none. Aerys had less. He commanded Sir Dennis to be executed along with any man, woman, or child who bore his family name.
Wow.
And anyone who once had. As for Sir Dennis's foreign wife, who had urged his defiance, Aerys commanded that her tongue and womanly parts be torn out, and she be burned alive. It was his first time passing such a sentence. It must have given him a taste for it.
Ew.
For the king rescued from Duskendale was not the same king who'd entered it. Many men would crack after 6 months in a dark
Yeah, this
cell,
guy
being
sucks.
mocked, prodded, and tweaked. Aerys had arrived cracked. Now he was shattered. For years he would refuse to leave the Red Keep, encouraged no doubt by his worried advisors, since he also refused to allow any blades near his person, even to shave his beard, cut his hair, and trim his nails. He began to see enemies in every shadow, who vanished only when the fires burned.
I mean, I get it to an extent, but you didn't have to do that to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, Varys is narrating a lot of these.
Though the Targaryens had forged the Seven Kingdoms in fire and blood, they didn't govern with them. Until they did. Maegor, first of his name, defined council as confirmation and disagreement as treason. 3 Grand Maesters tried to avert disaster. Instead of taking their advice, Maegor took their heads. As a second son and exile, Maegor was never meant to rule. But no sooner did Maegor hear of his brother's death than he flew Balerion to Dragonstone and demanded the crown.
See,
Only
these are
the
people that I
Grand
feel like
Maester
we
dared
might
object
meet
that
in
the throne should pass to his older brother's firstborn
House of the
son,
Dragon.
Prince Aegon. Maegor insisted that
Even
the
if it's in,
Iron
like,
Throne
season
should
2
go
or
to the
3.
man with the strength to seize it, and beheaded the Grand Maester. Prince Aegon soon took him at his word. He claimed his father's dragon, raised a host of Westermen, and marched on King's Landing while Maegor was in Old Town. Far from the capital, Maegor couldn't rally an army to match Aegon's. So he ordered his banners to swarm Aegon's larger army from all sides, confusing the young prince and slowing his advance. Beneath the god's eye, Maegor's disparate forces came together and attacked Aegon as Maegor himself swooped down from the clouds. For the first time since the doom of Valyria, dragon fought dragon in the sky. But Aegon's dragon was no match for Balerion the Dread, who was 4 times its size. When Aegon fell to his death, his army broke and fled. For slaying his own nephew, Maegor forever after became known as the Cruel. Though, of course, not to his face. The next Grand Maester dared object to Maegor taking a 3rd wife, when
the
taking his
watercolor.
2nd wife had ruined his brother's reign, because Maegor's first wife was the niece of the High Septon. But Maegor beheaded the Grand Maester and declared war on the faith. He set fire to the Riverlands, the Westerlands, and the
Have we had a good one?
campaign to root out disloyal lords,
Rhaegar.
and
Yes,
sponsored
Rhaegar.
a more pliant High Septon. None of it worked.
John.
Maegor may have returned to the
Yeah,
capital with
Rhaegar.
2,000 skulls of the Faith militant, but most of
Dang.
them weren't soldiers.
Only Rhaegars are good
Who had
Targaryens.
sheltered the outlaw
Well,
Septons, or turned
Yes.
out in droves to hear them denounce the wicked king. The 3rd Grand Maester dared to declare Maegor the father of his own heir. But when his 2nd wife miscarried, and Maegor saw the monstrous stillbirth, Maegor beheaded the Grand Maester for his insolent adherence to truth. So he had no one to warn him when his 3rd wife, sensing an advantage, declared that his 2nd wife had been unfaithful, and produced a list of potential fathers of the misshapen child. Not only did Maegor execute his 2nd wife and her father, his own Hand of the King, but he also marched on her family's castle and slaughtered everyone who bore a drop of
This
her
guy
family's
is
blood.
gullible and
But
also kind of
his
dumb.
3rd wife couldn't give him a child either. Desperate to cement his stolen throne with an heir, Maegor took 3 wives at once, known as the Black Brides because each were women he'd widowed in his wars. All 3 women grew full with child in time, but each gave birth to the same twisted monstrosities as his 2nd wife. One need not be a maester, much less a grand maester.
I'm starting to think
deduce
this
the
is
common
carried
thread here.
by you, dog.
Though Maegor stamped out the fires of rebellion, his cruelty and fear only scattered more tinder over the realm until even the smallest ember could set the realm alight. One day, the Faith militant emerged from the shadows, and the lords sent to quash it joined it instead. His hand resigned and retired to his island home. Finally, House Baratheon declared for Maegor's own nephew as the rightful king. The Lannisters, Tyrells, and Arryns soon joined, adding more than half the might of Westeros to the prince and his 2 dragons, which became 3 when Maegor's niece and involuntary Black Bride stole away from the Red Keep with her dragon. Her treason wasn't even the last. Maegor's own Lord Admiral sailed the royal fleet into his nephew's harbor, but most fitting of all, when Maegor tried to send ravens to call his banners, he found that his 4th Grand Maester had learned from his predecessors and fled. Maegor spent one final night on the Iron Throne. He was found in the morning with his wrists slashed and one of the throne's blades jutting from his throat. Nobody knows if it was one of his queens, or Kingsguard, or one of the thousands who wanted him dead, or even Maegor himself, frustrated that his body had failed his will. Whoever the culprit, no doubt he died as all tyrants do, believing that history would vindicate him. It hasn't. History may be written with fire and blood, but histories aren't. As any good advisor could have warned him.
I really like the art style of this one.
Yeah.
Like
A
the
lot of
last one,
watercolor.
Watercolor. Like
That's
the
it.
dripping.
Wow, y'all.
That was a good last one. That was. Ooh, I like
yeah,
that.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't really like that Euron was trying to compete with Jaime again.
I know,
Of
because
course.
he's no competition.
Yeah,
Like
come on,
Cersei
man.
at no point was even like actually interested. She was using him.
Yeah.
So it's like Euron,
Dude's a bozo.
you're pathetic.
Dude just smells like piss and beer, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And his name is Euron. Euron.
Exactly.
Urine. Yeah,
Urine.
exactly.
Piss
So-
Greyjoy.
I really, the actor did a fantastic job. It's the same with Joffrey's actor, Ramsay's actor.
Oh
like they're
my
all
gosh.
Yeah.
so good at playing such a hateable,
Mhm.
gross person.
Ugh.
And then I'm like, wow.
Right.
If I met them on the street, I'd just be like, wow, good job. Thank you.
We learned about the Blackfyre Rebellions.
Oh
Yes.
gosh, Blackfyre Rebellions were
Sad. Very sad for them.
what
I mean-
a name though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's kind of badass.
And that line at the end was cold too. Fire is only black when it's
Burnt to
burnt
ashes.
out. Yeah, burnt out or burnt to ashes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, true.
Dang.
And even then, it's mostly gray.
Yeah.
But gray
Great.
fire doesn't sound as cool as black fire, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
And we found out that Maegor is such a pitiful excuse for a human.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I wonder if George R. R. Martin drew inspiration from Henry the
Eighth?
Eighth. Yeah, with killing all the wives and stuff.
maybe.
No son again.
Yeah.
Looks like a death for you.
I mean, I imagine there was some inspiration there.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
It was your own fault though
Yeah. Like, hey,
that you couldn't.
sometimes that happens,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yes, it is.
Might suck, but you know.
I mean,
Yeah.
was that it?
I mean,
Yeah.
it was his. That was the last one. There
Yes.
wasn't really much to it,
I
but
mean,
it
it
was.
wasn't very
It was
long,
good.
but
Yeah, I liked.
You go. Sorry.
You go ahead. I love you.
I was just gonna say, I especially like the last one. So, yeah.
I really liked the animation of the last one.
Yeah.
And the pacing of it was actually very nice. I like when they have two people going back and forth with the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I think it adds to it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I got. Hi guys.
only got a couple more things that we can record for just Game of Thrones itself, and then we'll be on House the Dragon.
House of the Dragon, y'all. Oh man, I mean it's a little odd getting back into the swing of things, you know, when you don't record for a while and then hop
Yeah.
back in. Got to try and find a rhythm again and figure out, you know, calming the nerves and stuff, and just being able to be back to talk about it. Yeah, but honestly, yeah, that was an okay. Like, it was good as far as animation and story. It was pretty short. It wrapped up a lot of things, and it told us a lot about things we hadn't heard anything about yet in the story. So I mean, that was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the people we've heard of before mostly.
Yeah. But it's like the situation of like the Defiance of Duskendale or whatever the fuck it was called.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't remember what the
Duskendale.
Duskendale. Thank you. The Defiance of Duskendale. That was cool.
Yeah.
It really did trip me up the Euron thing, but the animation style was honestly, I think that was one of the cooler ones of the video. And then when they started coloring in the crests of the families, that was awesome. Everyone's sigil. That was actually really cool how they had the watercolor just adding in and bleeding off the page.
I was about to say the drips and moving to the next picture and coloring the whole army red. That was really pretty.
Yeah.
But that was like, ooh, someone had a good idea for a storyboard.
And the transitions they used were fantastic.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it for that one.
Good job to the artists.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we got anything else to cover for it.
Man, I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm excited to start House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Me too, because it's new to both of us, and you haven't seen season 2, right?
I have not seen season 2. I've only seen season 1.
Nice.
Yeah, so
we watch that, get caught up, get to the next part.
Yeah.
yes.
There we go. Sweet.
Bye.
Love
Thank
y'all.
you.
Hasta luego.